Returning now to our top story, childcare fees are rising faster than inflation, and about a quarter of daycare centres are charging parents for hours their kids are at home. The new Australian Competition and Consumer Commission pricing analysis shows fees in long daycare centres have soared 20% between 2018 and 2022. Joining me now live is Independent MP Dai. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Are you surprised by these findings?
Look, I'm not surprised at all. Look, we've had our forum here with our local childcare providers months ago, and the childcare providers in our local area have expressed their concerns in terms of the cost of childcare rising as a result of the increase in wages for the sector. Of course, everyone wants that increase for the sector, but we have to actually take into consideration the ramifications of that for many of the centres who will have to increase the salaries for their staff, which means that somebody has to pay and the government isn't paying. So therefore, those centres will have to increase salary. That means that at the end of the day, the users will have to pay for the increase in costs in addition, the cost of living, the cost of food, the cost of the supply in terms of the products that's needed for childcare centres. Everything has gone up. Of course, I'm not surprised at all that this will have that impact.
It's such a big issue for parents at the moment. In your view, is it a case of some rogue operators price gouging here, or do you think this is more widespread than that?
Look, I think it's more widespread than that. I think we have to really acknowledge that the cost of living over the last 12 months have increased. Electricity prices have increased. My local childcare providers have said this to me. That means they have to find a fund somewhere to pay for the increase in electricity prices for their centres, to pay for the increase in food, to pay for the increase in many of the things that are needed in a childcare centre, and the increase in wages. So therefore, I think we are going to see this huge increase in many other sectors, and not just the childcare sector, but the childcare sector has the most impact because, of course, we're encouraging women to go back to the workforce, and children needs to be placed in the childcare in order for women to go back to the workforce. And so all of these, there's a kind of I suppose, a flow-on effect in everything that we do in this sector.
Yeah, absolutely. And if these providers are putting up their prices because of the cost of living, does it cancel out Labor's childcare subsidy, which comes into effect from Monday? What more can be done here?
Look, you know what? That's what I've said. I said the small increase in the childcare subsidy is going to be cancelled out, neutralised. I've said this for months with the cost of living that we're all experiencing at the moment. And remember the 12 interest rate rises as well. So I think that I think the government has to do more. Of course, when you have children, you are responsible to raising your child. And if you need to go to work, you need to then, put your child in childcare. But if the government is encouraging the women to get back into the workforce, then they need to do more than just that small increase in subsidy. Because as the government will now have to see, that increase in subsidy means zilch, really, because the increase in childcare is much higher than that.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk more about the cost of living. We know that interest rates are on hold for now, but they've been going up for the past 15 months. How big of a difference do you think it's going to make?
Look, I have said this over and over, I sound like a broken record. We have not seen the 12 increases, the ramifications of that in our community. I'm glad that there's a pause at the moment because it gives us a breather to take the impact of all of those increases that we're yet to see. We're still yet to see how that's going to, it's going to obviously cause a lot of hardship, especially for my community in Fowler, where there's a large proportion of people who've got mortgages, and people are going to feel the pain of that, the pains of those 12 increases that we're yet to feel.
And given there's been a lot of criticism, I guess, over cost of living measures that have been announced by the federal government, but given the RBA was able to pause interest rates this time, inflation to an extent has come down, is it fair to say that those initiatives are making some difference?
No, I disagree. I think that we're still waiting to see how that is going to impact the 12 increases in interest rates, how that's going to impact our community and our families in Australia. Look, we're grateful that there's a pause. We're very grateful for that because I think people are just kind of really suffering at the moment with all of those cost of increases in food, in rent. Rent rises really has a huge impact as well. The lack of housing is having a huge impact. As we've just discussed, the cost of childcare, the cost of everything has gone up. So I'm glad that the RBA has given us a breather now. But I think that people are still going to feel the hurt of the 12 interest rate rises.
Let's talk a bit about your local area now. An expert panel set up by the Albanese government to help improve infrastructure in Western Sydney has so far not achieved any change. Now, Dai, this was a federal election promise, so it's been now over a year. Has enough been done to improve this area in your view?
In my view, my area of Fowler has been neglected. And I think this another panel, another expert panel is not going to make a difference because we know that there has been no investment in infrastructure in our area for many years. And you know, to talk about the East-West Rail, for instance, that got cancelled. Now the government reckons that there was no money behind that project, and they've got the infrastructure project. Well, you know, you don't need an expert panel to tell us that we've got no infrastructures here. I mean, they can go in and talk to me as a representative here, and I will tell them what's lacking. They can talk to the local councils here who've been crying out for local infrastructures here for years because of you know, we've had to take in about 15,000 refugees over the last 10 years, and there has been no extra infrastructure built. Roads, public transport, schools, you name it. So you don't need an expert panel to tell you what we're lacking here. You can ask me, you can ask our local community, local council, and we'll tell them.
Independent MP Dai, we have to leave it there. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you.